Welcome to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network with your hostess, Jen Josie. Join like-minded real estate investors and accelerate your business towards greatness. You will hear step-by-step strategies for success, interviews with real estate rock stars, and we will dig deep into past projects where we bear it all, including the good, the bad, and some just plain ugly. So get excited. Here's the bestower of badassery herself, the real Jen Josie. Listener discretion is advised.
Hi, and welcome back. I'm Jen Josie, creator of RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Whoop, whoop. On today's episode, we have two guests that will be sharing their badassery. But before we begin, here's today's badassery bestowment, my little badass gift to you. Today's topic is the power of the follow-up. In the world of real estate investing, successful deals often hinge on the art of the follow-up. While initial interactions with potential sellers are crucial, it's the consistent follow-up that can truly set you apart as a badass investor. Here are 4 reasons why it's so important. Number 1, building trust and rapport. Follow-up calls or messages demonstrate your genuine interest in the seller's needs. Consistency shows that you are committed to the relationship and willing to work with them over time. This can foster trust and rapport, making the seller more inclined to work with you. Number 2, timing is everything. Real estate deals can take time to mature. What may not be a suitable offer today might be acceptable in a few weeks or months. Regular follow-up allows you to stay in the seller's mind and be there when the timing aligns for a mutually beneficial agreement. Number 3, overcoming objections. Sellers may have concerns, objections, or hesitations that they're not ready to express in that initial conversation. By following up and keeping the lines of communication open, you provide them with an opportunity to voice their concerns, and you can address them effectively. Number 4, nurturing leads. Not all potential sellers are ready to sell immediately. Some may be considering it for the future. By maintaining contact, you can nurture these leads over time, increasing the likelihood of converting them into successful deals down the road. So, remember that effective follow-up does not mean bombarding sellers with messages or becoming a pest. It's about maintaining a respectful and considerate presence in their real estate journey. Whether you use phone calls, direct mail, or other communication channels, consistency in your follow-up can be the key to unlocking profitable real estate opportunities. Now on to today's episode of the Real Estate Investor Growth Network podcast. We have with us founders of Warriors of Wealth and their remote multi-investing academy, Jen and Stacy Conkey. Jen and Stacy have 20 plus years as entrepreneurs and real estate investors. Through their diverse real estate experiences, they know what it takes to identify deals and make offers on properties that will build a long-lasting wealth portfolio. With over a decade of experience sharing knowledge with other investors, Jen and Stacy have taught thousands of people across the globe what it takes to succeed in multifamily real estate investing with actionable strategies that make cash flow real estate fun and easy. It's always a pleasure to have some badass ladies on the show. So welcome, Jen and Stacy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi, ladies.
Hi.
I am just checking out your tattoos and, thinking, where am I going to start my sleeve? I just don't know how to start it. So just like one little tiny, and the listeners can't see, but anyway, thank you so much for being here on the show today. Tell me how you all got started with real estate.
Well, you want to start?
You go first.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Well, so we have, our stories are different. We started in different ways, but for me, it was, 20 years ago. And I went to a Tony Robbins event and Unleash the Power Within. And the main thing I got out of that event is that I was just on the wrong path. I was working in corporate America and climbing that ladder. And I just got out of it. This is not the path I'm meant to be on. So, a multitude of things happened, but I ended up discovering real estate investing and to me, it was very logical. the first speaker I heard about it was talking about a 4-unit property. And I was like, oh my gosh, yes, you buy it once, you have 4 different renters. That makes so much sense, So that got me interested. And then I started reading books and joined an investor club and then went and got some education, which was quite awful. But that's how I started. And then I just, from there, I immediately started doing remote investing because where I lived, the numbers, it just didn't work very well.
So was this why you were in Southern California?
I was actually in Sacramento at the time.
Okay.
When I first started. And so it was very competitive. The market was competitive. Prices were very high. And, I did that one driving for dollars one day. And I was like, wow, that was exhausting. And I don't think I want to do that again. So I learned about remote investing shortly thereafter. And then that became my strategy. Cause then I wasn't bound by geography. And what I was taught was you got to invest within 50 miles of where you live. So I was like, oh, okay, well, I got to invest here. Then I had a different teacher shortly thereafter that lived in Canada and invested in the US. Oh. Everything he did remotely. And so I started learning, like, how do you do that? And that's really what launched my whole career. And everything I've done since has been remote. We saw one of our properties recently because we were on an RV road trip and we're like, oh, let's go check out the 96 unit. And so it was sort of on our way back to Florida. So we stopped by our 96 unit and saw it, but we're not accustomed to ever seeing our properties in person because we do everything through our teams and we manage our teams remotely and the properties remotely. But yeah.
Well, I can't wait to dive into that. But Jen, how did you get involved with real estate?
So, I've always been a fire, ready, aim kind of girl. And I was living in Bakersfield working in corporate America. And I did that for 22 years, by the way, and did real estate on the side. So my brother came over, wanted to go to the store. We ended up driving around for dollars for 6 hours. And he was talking about fix and flips. And I was like, what is that? And then I was hooked. So I started off with fix and flips and wholesaling. And then I scaled into doing 2 to 4 units. And then after that, it was in 2015, I decided, this ladder's on the wrong wall and I met Stacy at the time also and decided that we were going to go for apartments and started off with small apartments because we actually did do commercial training and tried to do the syndication process. And, when you go to implement, it's not quite as easy as it sounds while you're there. So we did a different approach and we thought, this whole joint venture that we've been doing on 2 to 4 properties, we could probably apply that to small apartments. And that's how it started. And then we perfected that. And that's how we started the academy. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell. I started at fix and flips, wholesaling, duplexes, 2 to 4 units, and then went into apartments. And it's just been a steady stair-step approach. I went at it alone for 12 years. And then when I met Stacy, we went at it together, combined our forces, and that's how we were able to scale.
I love that. And I especially like that you have the same background as me, starting with that single family home flip and then now evolve, because I'm right there. I'm dipping my toe into the multifamily. I still have quite a ways to go. But what are some of the differences between multifamily and single family flipping, et cetera? So what are the big, why do people start with that and then venture to larger things?
I think why do people start with it?
Gosh. Usually mindset.
Yeah. Well, mindset. I know we've done all of the different kinds of real estate. We've done tons of flips and we just, the flipping strategy works when the market works. So it's one that when the market turns, we probably will do some flips, but I think that people are attracted to doing fix and flips because you can make a chunk of money. The thing is when you're doing it over and over and over, it is work and it's active work and it becomes a job. And it can be a good paying job, except sometimes when you make a mistake, then you lose money and then it doesn't feel like such a great paying job. But I think the natural progression, and I also started with fix and flip and wholesale. I just ended up getting into small multifamily fairly quickly and just doing both. But the natural progression really is to start thinking long term, I don't want to keep having to deal with contractors and always finding the next property. So let me start building in some of the long-term or the passive income by buying rentals. So I think that's the normal progression that people would tend to go anyway, because they don't want to always have to be grinding and looking for the next property. And the multifamily is more of a long-term hold. Is you do the work up front to get it, stabilize it. And then there's not usually much to do because you're leveraging third-party property management.
And I think that a lot of people, when they first start, they want to start with where they're comfortable.
Right.
And a lot of people don't want to take risks on a big building. So, if I bought a personal residence, then I'm pretty comfortable with that. And I can probably apply that strategy to a fix and flip. At least that was my thought process. Like, I'll just apply that same framework and flip them. Then eventually I'm going to hold them. And I held single family homes while trying to do 2 to 4, and then realizing, oh my God, like as soon as somebody moves out, I have to cover the whole nut. And it's not like that on this one. So I think we only have 2 single family homes in our entire portfolio left. And it's like, you can use those as equity plays, but you don't think like that in the beginning. You just think, let me get that first 200 feet done. And that's on what I know. And it's a single family home, and it's perfectly reasonable. There's so many people that do it that way. And then you want more. Right? You want more. And then you realize there's a little bit more to be made when you do a buy and hold strategy that's more predictable income. When rents are due, that's an exciting time of the month versus, holy crap, where's the contractor on this rehab? And am I behind, or when's the next deal? And that's a cluster. So it's like another job.
Oh my goodness.
Not that multifamily isn't, but eventually when you build up, it's less.
Well, the little bit of time I have spent in multifamily for about a year and a half now, the difference, well, number one, I love not having to work directly with contractors because I feel like a babysitter. I told you all before, as we were prepping for it to record, that I was a former middle school teacher of 16 years. And I was like, oh, my babysitting days are over. And then I'm flipping houses and I'm babysitting these contractors, it feels like half the time. So yes, agree. So I giggled when both of you brought that up. But a huge difference I have noticed from dealing with single family homes versus multifamily is there's so much less emotion attached to it. Oh my
100%
goodness. When you're dealing with single family homes and maybe they're going through foreclosure, and you can put on your superhero's cape and help that family out of a tough situation, which is great, what many real estate investors do. But when you start buying multifamily, you're dealing typically with other real estate investors, and it's all about numbers. Let's make this work, etc. So do you have anything else that stands out, the difference between single family homes and then multifamily?
I think, go ahead.
No, I was going to talk about the way they're valued, and just the money to be made in multifamily is far superior to single family, but I don't.
Yeah. Well, so I didn't even think about that, but that's true. So there's 2 things when people are going, well, should I go single family or multifamily? Like if we just compare rentals, single family, residential multifamily, commercial multifamily, single family homes are great for building equity, but from a cash flow standpoint, they sometimes cash flow on paper, but not in real life, because if you have one vacancy, if somebody moves out and you don't get someone in there like immediately, it could kill your cash flow for the entire year, just that one vacancy. So the one thing I do like when we're comparing single family to even small residential multifamily is you have more renters, which makes it less risky from the standpoint of if one of your tenants moves out, you still have at least another tenant, if not 2 or 3, depending on the size of the property. So that's one thing. And that's why we like multifamily, because it's very rare that we would have to come out of pocket to cover the property expenses.
Yeah.
And when I was new, I didn't know that. I did lots of single family home rentals when I was a new investor, and it kicked my butt. Like it was rough. It was, especially when 2008 started coming around and they were having trouble, and then all of a sudden they couldn't pay. It was like, oh my God, it was a mess.
Yeah.
But then to Jen's point with the small multifamily or 1 to 4 units versus
5 and up,
yeah. The way that they're valued creates a massive amount of opportunity in apartment world. So 1 to 4 family, we know it's valued based on the comps. So whatever other properties like that have sold for, like that's the most that your property can ever be worth. Whereas 5+, we're not limited in that way. If we can increase the net operating income, so either raise the revenues or lower the expenses, we have a direct impact and a multiplier impact on the value of the property. So it's very common within, like even with our students who are just new, for people to make multiple 6-figure profits on even a tiny little apartment building because of the whole valuation way, because they go in and they stabilize it, they maximize the NOI, and the value becomes very, very high compared to what they bought it and rehabbed it for.
Yeah.
So it's a big wealth builder when people can just get into the mindset of, you can get started with apartments. You don't have to start with 2 to 4 units. You can start with apartments, and it's okay to do a small deal to learn it.
Yeah.
I love that. Did you want to add, Jen? Anything?
Yeah, that's exactly where my angle was, is that, you can only do so much. There's a point of diminishing returns in terms of how you increase the value of the property and increase the market rent for a 1 to 4. I mean, it's exponential on apartments, because as you increase that, you're increasing the top line, minimizing expenses, and doing all those things. It increases the value. There's a direct relationship to that. And there is just so much money to be made there. On top of that, just between the cash flow and equity, that's awesome, plus the tax benefits. But on top of that, there's also the acquisition fees, the asset management fees, the disposition fees. Like you can make 6 figures alone in that, let alone the cash flow, the equity, and the tax depreciation, the things that you get from those benefits. Like, there's a lot of opportunity there. Right? And I feel like you have way more direct impact and control based on the calories you're burning to improve that property. You get more juice, more, what is it? The juice is worth the squeeze, is what I always say. The juice is worth the squeeze on apartments more than it is on 1 to 4 for those reasons. And I'm money motivated. So, I don't know about you guys, but that's where it makes more sense for me.
You got me so excited with so much that you just said. Oh my goodness. So what are some quick examples to maximize the net operating income? What are some things that you can do to a commercial? And by the way, listeners, the 1 to 4 is still considered residential, I guess. And then 5+ units are called commercial, and they are evaluated differently. You don't use comps. They're just looking at the actual building, et cetera. So for commercial properties, 5 or more, what are some great ways to maximize that net operating income?
I love this question.
Yeah. So
literally on that. So I know, like, you're going to have that a lot today. Yeah. Sorry. On the 96 unit, just a perfect example of what we've done there is like we are in phase 1, we stabilize things by addressing occupancy. So when the occupancy is lower and it's not in that target range, as you increase occupancy and put more folks in the doors, and your turnover, it's kind of like PSA Airlines, or Southwest. Wow, I just aged myself. Southwest Airlines focus on turnarounds, right? A plane sitting on the ground is a plane that's not making money. It's the same thing for a door. A door that is empty is a door not making money.
Right.
And so our first strategy was to go in and make sure we increase occupancy. And then second phase is there's opportunities there where there's storage units that we can convert and rent out, and that's additional revenue. The other one is that we partnered with a cable company to get fiber optics in there. And so we created a deal with them, and then we charge the resident for their cable needs. We're meeting their needs, but there's a little bit of a spread there in terms of what the cash collector, the revenue that we're going to be bringing in as a result of that. And then, my God, you've got all kinds of other ideas like the trash, the valet trash, premier parking. Like, there are so pet rent. There's so many little things that as you tack that on, it increases the rent, and the resident sees the value, right? But by increasing that rent on those smaller things, it is tremendously impactful. Like, just from a numbers perspective, because you're the numbers person, that she could just fly off like Rain Man.
Oh God.
If we were like, just from a numbers
use round numbers.
Yeah. Use round numbers, right? Like by increasing the rent across, let's just say it's 100 units instead of 96, let's say it's 100 units, and we increase the rent by even $35 per door, just from that one thing on the cable.
Yeah.
Right. And then pet rent too. What does that do to the value? This is get a pen.
Okay. So if you have 100 units, and I want to talk about some smaller ones too, because especially if people are beginners, I want them to know about the smaller ones. You can make a lot of money with those too. But let's say it's 100 units times $35 a month. So we're making an extra $3,500 a month. You always annualize it, right? So we're going to multiply that by 12. So we've basically increased our income by $42,000, right? So that's like increase the cash flow, increase the income based on, cap rates in that market. That one change, increasing each unit's income by $35, increases the value of that property by $600,000. $600,000. It's a 7% cap rate. That's that's a mid-range. That's not even like a really high value market. It's mid-range. So it's conservative. And certainly we've increased it way more. Will make $4 million when we are completely done stabilization. After 5 years, the 5-year timeline, it'll be worth $13.5 million. And we bought it for 9.5. But part of it is just looking for every opportunity we can to increase the revenue. And a lot of that too, one of the things that we've done there, tenant satisfaction is really, I don't care whether this is an 8-unit building or a 96-unit building. Tenant satisfaction can be one of the most profitable things that you can do. Because if you think about when you have a rental property and somebody moves out, you got to go in and you got to do the unit turnover. There's always cost to that. Even if they have a security deposit right. and they've blown it, it costs more to turn it over. So that costs money. Plus it's vacant during that time and that costs money. So anytime you can have increased tenant satisfaction where they stay and they don't move out and they re-sign a lease and you're staying on top of market rents and maybe, bumping it up, you will change your bottom line to such a massive degree. So like one of the things that we're getting ready to do there is we're sending out a tenant survey. And some of the things we're asking them is, what are some of the amenities that get you excited? And what kind of like community events would you be interested in having us host? So that they not only are happy with living in there, they want to keep living there. Because, and that, one, I'm happy that they're happy, but the reality is that goes right to our bottom line. And we're running a business.
Yeah. Let's say it wasn't 100 units. If it was just 10 for everybody out there that's afraid of the 100, what would it? So it'd be 60,000, right? Well, it depends on the cap rate, but
yeah. So let's just say it's a 10 unit, because that between 5 and 10 units that's a great size. If you're nervous to get started, that's totally doable. It's like getting 2 quads, like no big deal. So if we did $35 a unit times 10 units, that's $350 a month times 12, $4,200 a year. And if it was like a mid-range cap rate, it would be increased by $60,000 for the tiniest little thing. And the reality is when we take over properties, even if the property is already stabilized, almost always they are not at market value.
Yeah, right.
Like landlords just, especially if they're self-managing, they just don't stay up with market values. So that's one of the areas that we make the most money on, is just implementing usually a 12 to 24 month plan to get all of the units up to the market rates.
Yeah.
And that is the biggest impact we have. And then when we can like decrease expenses through doing, breaking out the utilities, passing along the utility costs back to the tenant through doing a RUBS program, like that has a really big impact too. On top of all the stuff that Jen mentioned, all the value add things that we do or that we can do. It depends on what building, right? Some buildings you can't do valet trash. It's the wrong demographic. And some there's not going to be covered parking because it's in a snow area and that's not going to work. But like in hot areas, people will pay a premium to be in a covered space. Well, that increases your NOI and that increases your value. Well, so there's a lot you can do to make so much more money when it comes to 5+ units.
And can someone who's just getting involved in real estate, can they go straight into multifamily?
Yes.
Yeah,
We've had several students do that.
So give me some samples, some examples of students, and tell me about their first deals, because I think that's really going to help the listener just really because you are saying some amazing things, but 96 units does sound very scary. But for someone who's just starting off, give us some examples of your students that have been very successful.
Okay, so I'll give you an example. We'll just start with smaller, and I'll build up a little bit, because I know there's nothing. If someone is just like, I am just terrified, then go ahead and start with whatever will get you started, because that first deal changes everything for you. You have so much more knowledge when you're done. But we had a student, Lupe, a couple of years ago, and she had been in another program for an entire year, never did a deal. She came to us and it had been 4 months and she still hadn't done a deal. And we're like, what is going on? And it was mindset stuff. And so Jen worked with her and, worked through some of the mindset issues. So she finally, after 4 months, got into her first duplex. She wanted to get into apartments, but she was hung up. So I'm like, then start with a duplex. Just start with something so that you can get the confidence and then you have the credibility. So she ended up getting a duplex. And when we interviewed her later, she was like, I look back and that deal, it wasn't a home run. It was okay. But the big thing about that deal is it gave me the confidence to go get the next. So she bought a duplex, then a single family home, then another duplex, then an 18 unit. And then she's just gone on to do much bigger things. So like that law of the first deal, where sometimes you just need it to prove to yourself that you can do it. But we have students who are like, I don't want to waste my time with anything that's small. Like Liz came in, she's like, I don't want to bother with 2 to 4 units. I'm doing apartments. Mm-hmm. Her first deal that she was the active operator one was 24 units. And we've had others like Temmie, when he started with us, he had done a couple of duplexes where he lived, like where he could go. He was self-managed, like all the things that people frequently do that we don't teach, because we want to have people have time freedom, location freedom. And he wanted that too. And he wanted to scale. And where he lived, they didn't have apartment buildings where the numbers made sense. So he went to another market. We taught him how to do market research, and he picked a market, and he wasn't ready to go big, but he found a 6 unit. And it took him a few months to do that, to find it, to negotiate it. And it was hard to get the deal closed. There's financing issues. And man, he worked so hard, and he finally got it closed. And he was like, oh my God, I literally in one deal, it took me 3 years to acquire my 3 duplexes. In 4 months, I basically doubled my door count with one deal. And then a month later, he got another 6 unit.
Oh my gosh.
Because he had the confidence and the lender, they had the credibility. Yeah. His realtor, he's like, my realtor's never, ever going to talk to me again. She's never going to work with me again. Because it was so hard to close. And I was like, I bet you anything she calls you in a month with another deal. And sure enough, because he showed that he would work through and he would close it. And what he learned during that deal, like he can apply that now to 12 units, 24 units, 50 units, and just keep stair stepping until he can get to the point where he can do a 100-unit deal.
We even had, so Brad Bunin.
Oh yeah.
Had never done real estate. He came from sales, and his very first 2 deals were 211 units. He just went straight in for it without any real estate investing experience, just straight into an 11 unit. We've had so many of the opportunities where people, they want to take that stair step approach, and then many others that are like, I'm just going to go for it. I'm going to burn the same amount of calories on going after this apartment that I would for a two door. So let me just go this way, and I'll go for a 5 to 10 unit. And then that's what they jump into. It really is a risk factor, a risk tolerance factor.
So I'm sure a question is popping in everyone's head. How are people financing these deals? Because, when you have a single family home, it's smaller numbers. Well, not necessarily. I bought a 12 unit in Southern Virginia. It was cheap, but that's another story. So people are like, you paid what? So how do they finance these deals? I think that's going to be probably one of the biggest questions for the listeners.
Well, financing when it comes to commercial is like, you're typically going to put down more of a down payment than you would like on a duplex or a single family home. So the LTV, loan to value, is lower, but you can still use traditional conventional bank financing just like you would for anything else. So you'll get whatever loan. Now the difference is what you have to make up. And most of the students that come to us in the academy, they have some amount of capital, but they don't have enough capital to like close an entire deal by themselves. Or if they can do one, they can't do 3 or 4. And everybody that comes to us, they want to build a business to scale and leave their jobs. So that difference between what the bank will give and what you need to close, you might have some of it, but maybe not all of it. And so what we really encourage our students to do, and what we teach so much of, is joint venture, where you'll have you and maybe 2 or 3 other people. And, your partners are probably putting in the capital because you're the one finding the deal and doing the majority of that work. But basically you come together and you do the deal together. And so not only is that a great way to finance, to get the money for the deal, but it gives everybody an opportunity to say, hey, I own an 11 unit. And that even the people who weren't the one who found it, they now have credibility when they go talk to brokers and lenders about other deals, because they are technically a part of that deal. They are an owner.
And they're getting the cash flow and the equity and everything as well, even though they didn't source the deal.
Yeah. So that's a big one. I mean, seller financing. I mean, that's when we have our next event coming up. That's literally the main topic, because now the interest rates are, I want to say they're sky high, but the reality is they're just where we were when we started 20 years ago. They're just back. They're not so bad like it was in the 80s, but now that they are higher than they've been, and people are not accustomed to that, I think because we had such a long time where interest rates were really, really low, there's an opportunity for seller financing if you can, talk to a seller. And in commercial, seller financing is much more known than it is with like residential sellers. But if you can take advantage of someone having a low interest rate, and maybe you're paying them higher than what they have, so they're going to make some extra money, but it's lower than what you would get at a bank. So I think seller financing is going to be probably at least 50% of how we end up financing our deals over the next couple of years until the rates like chill out a little bit, because there's just so many sellers that have low interest rates if they bought it or refinanced it anytime in the last several years.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent point, because many people, like I was saying before, when you start getting into multifamily, you're just talking numbers and this and that. And maybe it's a burden to them. Maybe it's just a mom and pop shop. They have a 12 unit, 24 unit, and they can't maintain the property. So you come in, they're still getting cash flow from it. You're just taking over it and then improving it, raising that NOI with all those awesome ideas that you ladies shared. So I think that's fantastic. You mentioned an event. So what event do you badass ladies have coming up?
We have our Warriors of Wealth conference that's coming up November 3rd through the 5th in Orlando. It is the premier networking event for multifamily investors that are looking to scale with JV to syndication. We've got lenders there. We've got fundraisers there. We've got capital raisers there. We've got all different types of business funding, asset protection. Like, we have everybody who's anybody that comes together and supports a multifamily investor going for it. Plus, we have all of our students that are going to be there. And we have a vision. We're trying to get 100 teams of 3. So in the teams are acquisition manager, capital raiser, asset manager, and we help facilitate and create those teams during the event and pair people up, do networking, speed dating, all of those things so you can make connections and actually leave there with an action plan and go implement and get results. So yeah, that event is coming up November 3rd through the 5th. It's fun. We're kind of crazy though, I'll tell you. We do team building events because the things that I do, like we party somewhere.
Jen is crazy.
Somewhere
I'm not crazy.
This arrow shit, it like blew. I'm like, what in the hell are they doing? What do you do with the arrow?
Full disclosure. One of the things that we believe in is that whatever you hold in your mind, you will manifest in reality. And so what you believe in your mind and you think about constantly, like, I can't go into apartments. There's 100 units scares me. I can't do this. You will live that. And that's the reality you will have. But what we like to do is bring everybody in the room, have them create a vision of their extraordinary life. I force people to think about what is that one thing that you really want, but you think, that's never going to happen. And I want you to write it all down. And I want you to write it all down as if it's happened. And then we're going to draw a picture and you're going to visualize that. And even though you think it's not going to happen, you're going to come up here and I've got these arrows and I want you to pick the arrow that calls to you. And then just come grab it really quick and hold it for me. And I have them hold it and I have them put it in their hands and they see that it's a pretty sturdy arrow and it's a 40-pound arrow that can kill a grizzly bear. Quite honestly, that's just facts, right? It's a 40-pound arrow that can kill a grizzly bear. And today we're going to break it with our throat.
Right there.
Right here.
The soft spot.
And, it's a whole process. Everybody comes onto the stage one at a time with me, eye to eye, looking at you like you're going to get out of your own way. If I'm involved in your life, I'm going to change it. And it starts with this arrow break. So at our events, we're either breaking arrows with our throat or breaking boards like we're doing Kung Fu. No matter what, it's all related to what you think is impossible. And then when you break that arrow, and everybody does, when you break that arrow, something shifts inside of you because you realize, oh my God, what did I just do? And if I can do that, I can do anything. And then when people leave, they believe in themselves. So we do get a little crazy. We do lip sync battles. We do, scavenger hunts. We do casino nights. We do all kinds of crazy things.
Axe throwing. I saw the axe throwing.
That was fun when we did that.
Because those things, they help you get to know people and whether or not you want to do deals and conduct business. And then the coup de grace is at the very end. Everybody snaps an arrow and everybody else's presence. We're all cheering for each other. And it's that moment, that breakthrough. You get to take your arrow home with you. I highly suggest that you put it in a glass box with the thing you thought was impossible, but now impossible is spelled I'm possible. Mm-hmm. It's a whole thing. Like, it's fun. It's fun. It's crazy, but it's fun.
What a breakthrough. I love that. And you touched on something before. You mentioned a student who had done a whole education program for a year, and then they're 4 months into your program. They still have yet to even put an offer out there, go after. And what do you think that blockage is with people? Because I do see students that are what I call perpetual students. They think I'll pay for this next one, this next education program, and it will happen. So I know there's a mindset in there, but also what are some actionable items that you give students? And I love the, setting them up with a team and doing all that, but anything else that you have in there? Because breakthroughs are huge, especially it's a mindset shift in this business.
Absolutely. So, and I'm just going to say there's four steps to master a new skill. And what usually happens is people get stuck on the second step. Because the first one is we are unconsciously incompetent about something. We don't know what we don't know. Therefore, we don't ask the questions because we don't know what questions to ask. And we're dizzy and it's like, whoa, there's opportunity, right? Then it comes to step 2, which is conscious incompetence. Like we are aware that we're ignorant to the ways. And it's frustrating because most of us that are in this game are high achievers. We're, type A, and we go for things and we're not accustomed to giving up. So what happens is in that step 2, we get frustrated because it's not happening fast enough. And we forgot how long it took us to apply a framework to mastering something. And mastery takes about 4 years. But if we don't just set milestones, like every single step in a deal, selecting your market, that's a milestone. That's a glass ceiling you'll break through. Analyzing the deal and really mastering the calculator and getting the reps in there, that's a glass ceiling that you got to break through. Then after that, it's you're under contract, you got to do due diligence. Like there's all these little micro glass ceilings that you have to break through. And you do that all the way through your first deal. Well, a lot of people just keep bumping their head on the glass ceiling and they get frustrated, and then they go back and retreat to their comfort zone of single family homes and flipping, and because that's what they know, and their quest is for certainty. And mastering something has a lot of uncertainty to it. So the way that we teach them is you have to have your why, because you'll give up on step 2. And usually what happens is there's 5 reasons people quit. The first one is the wrong motivation. And that is the first domino that knocks all the rest down. So the first one is external goal that you want to hit, but then you've got to have that fire inside of you, the internal intrinsic motivation that keeps you going. And those are what I call your compelling reasons on why this must happen for you so that you don't go back to your comfortable ways. And that's one of the things we do at the event too, is we go through everybody's compelling reasons. We're asking why and what they're doing and why they must do this. That's the first step. And then having the right expectation. It's not going to happen overnight. And a lot of us want it to. And it's not Matrix. We're not Neo. We're not going to get that thing in the back of the neck where we just learn Kung Fu in 90 seconds. You have to do the work. And as human beings, we want the reward without the work. And that's why people go from program to program to program. And at the very base of it, what it is it's a self-worth issue and a lack of belief in self, or it's I just want what I want and I want it now. And on top of that, I do believe that I deserve it, but it's just, I don't want to have to do all that work. Like, can you short step it for me? Can you shortcut it for me? And I'm telling you, the answer is no, because that's a too common mistake in some instances when it's a bigger building. So those are the frameworks that I always teach the students. And we have a mindset course that, they all go through. And the resilience factor inside of us, that when we bump our head on something, to not just go back to what's comfortable, but to actually sharpen our skills and rise up to the person we have to be to achieve the goals that we want. Like, you have to grow into that. So that's usually what keeps people stuck. For Lupe, it was that, she had this perfect little box of a deal that she wanted, and yay for her that she had boundaries, but they were really strict and they were tight. And when we really dug into it, it was because she was afraid to lose money or make a mistake and didn't have faith in herself. So it was just a belief shift and believing that this is actually what can happen. And these are the things that I control and what I can do to impact my results. But yeah, so if you're stuck at that, I know what I don't know and I'm trying to learn it, and you keep bumping your head, I say you set that goal. And when you're 90% of the goal, celebrate it and set the new goal so that you keep going. Momentum is everything in this business.
Huge. I think momentum, that's a very good badassery bestowment. So I love everything you said. I could totally tell you are an NLP master practitioner from everything that just came out of your mouth. Stacy, how about you? Did you ever study NLP?
I actually went to the initial NLP training, and we were actually talking about me going to master prac, but we just there's just only so many hours in the day. And we have so much real estate and our academy and our 4 kids. And it was just I think this is not going to fit. We don't know, both need to be master practitioners. Jen is so good at it. And I know that for our students,
yes,
it is the difference. And it's funny because for a long time, I've always prided myself on being I'm very good at teaching. It's my superpower and I love it. Not teaching kids. I would rather stab myself in the face, but I love teaching adults who want to be real estate investors. I love breaking it down and just this one step and do A, B, C to make it so easy for them. So I always prided myself on having the ability to get people into deals because my teaching is just so great. It's all because of the teaching. And the reality is it's not, that helps. But Jen's work mindset work with our students and her using her master practitioner stuff to run the mindset calls and to help them, she'll work with someone and then all of a sudden the next week they're in a deal and but the information was there the whole time and they'd even taken it, but there was something else going on behind, in the unconscious mind. And it's such a powerful thing. That's why we incorporate so much mindset stuff in.
To the point where I'm actually training master practitioners and sent them to my same school with my same teacher. And they are mindset coaches alongside me now because Academy is just getting so big and I can't handle everybody. Right. So we've been growing the group because it's 80% in your mind, 20% is a mechanics.
And I think that's the key right there. It's a mindset shift. You're a real estate investor now. You need to start acting like one. And I love everything you ladies are saying. How do people find the wow con? I love that. I want to call it. So it's the Warriors of Wealth conference.
It's super simple. It's wowcon.com.
Yeah. We bought that URL. We're like, that's feels like that'll be the easiest way. So it's WOWCON.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of that. The second part of the podcast is what makes you ladies badasses. Duh. And I use the acronym BADASS, and the first letter is B for book. So what's a book that's made a huge difference in your life?
Well, for me, it's The Adversity Quotient by it literally just talks about how when adversity pops up, how you respond to it. That's why I say when you fall back to what's comfortable, that's when you're stuck. And when you bounce back, you stay in the game of momentum. So that book was critical for me. It was 15 years ago that I read that book, and it really opened the door for me from a mindset perspective on what to do.
Love it. How about you, Stacy?
For me, it was How to Win Friends and Influence People. And for the longest time, I wouldn't read that book because the title, I was like, I can make friends. Like, how embarrassing. I have to read a book about how to make friends. But a mentor of mine actually recommended it as like one of the highest recommendations they could make. And I was like, okay, well, I respect that person. And it turned out for me, I'm very uncomfortable with networking. I'm very outgoing with my students because I'm comfortable with them, but networking, I'm really uncomfortable. And so one of the things that book really helped me to understand is that it's not about me. Like make all of your conversations about that other person, because for one, that makes them feel important and valued. And there's like this natural reciprocation that happens and they feel like they just really know you. Even if you never said anything, they could talk the entire time and so it builds this rapport. So that was really helpful, because it took off the pressure when I'm doing networking to be like, oh, I got to know what to say, or I got to start the conversation. Just make it about them. And then it just becomes a normal conversation between two people. So I really love that book, especially for anyone who's like a little shy about networking and talking to people. It was the thing that helped to set that part of me free so that I could connect with people better and make more friends in real estate and raise more capital. And I'm
surprised to hear you are shy to networking. That kind of blows my mind. But I also have to add, I did not read Rich Dad, Poor Dad for the longest time because I thought it was a parenting book.
That makes sense.
I was like, I don't have any kids. I don't need to read that shit. Isn't that funny? I know. Oh my goodness. I digress. All right. The first A in badass is advice. What's the best piece of advice you've ever received? You've given us some great advice. So what's some advice you all have received?
For me, it's that life is 10% what happens to you and 90% how you respond.
Yeah. So true.
Responding versus reacting. It's think and grow rich, not react and it's actually react and go poor. I don't know. I'm going to read that book.
Oprah just came out with a new book, and I just downloaded it. I can't even remember what it's called, but it's about the science of being happy, and it's how you react to things, and exactly what you were saying, Jen. I love that. All right, the D in badass is for drive. What drives you ladies to be successful?
For me, it's very much. When I was a new investor and I had spent $40,000 on my education, and then I went into the real world of investing and found out how little I actually knew. And I was very frustrated. And I thought, I can see how people would just quit, because you can only smack your face on a wall so many times and you're just like, forget this. This doesn't work. And so I became very determined back then. And it was, 19 years ago, that I'm like, if I can ever figure this out, I am going to go back and I am going to teach other people who are new, because the education that's available is crap, and it's missing 80% of the things you actually legitimately need to know when you're trying to actually do real estate. And it was so different than my learning style. And I made so many mistakes as a result. So for me, the passion was, I am going to figure out how to do this, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to teach other people how, so they don't have to go through this pain. Because if it's too much pain, they'll quit. And if they quit, they don't get to realize their dreams. And that is an absolute disaster. That should never happen. That for me, that drives me. I'm the most passionate about helping people get through to closing that first deal, and then supporting them and teaching them how to scale. But it's really the brand new person closing that first deal that it drives me. It's my absolute purpose. So, because I know if they can do one, they can keep going.
Right. So, Stacy, what would you recommend to the listener out there that is not part of an education program right now, so they don't make the same mistake you did and pick one because maybe it has national, whatever the word I'm trying to say, attention. I'm perimenopausal. Right. So like words escape my brain. I have that brain fog right now. What am I trying to say? That they have a national...
Yeah, like a national brand, or their big name.
Yes, exactly. So how would you recommend to the listeners to find an education program that fits to their learning strategies, et cetera?
Okay. So if somebody was like, no, I do want to learn how to do it, I don't want to just, DIY or figure it out. For one thing, there's going to be different people that you connect with in different ways, like their teaching style or their mindset, or, Jen and I, once in a while, we're going to say fuck. And so if that's going to offend
if you're going to clutch your pearls, it's not for you.
You're going to clutch your pearls in your handbag and be like really upset about how raw and authentic we are, then we wouldn't be the right fit. There'll be somebody else for you. But I think the main thing I'd recommend to people is see what's out there, and ask questions, and ask the other people in their program, like, what is it really like once you get in? Yeah. Because, Jen makes the comment sometimes, and it makes me laugh. She's like, at one point I had more binders than doors because of all the different seminars, attended, that you get theory, you get nothing to actually act on. So I'd say, do your research, find people that you feel like you can connect with. I know our style, our students are like our family, because they came to us because they resonate. They know we're going to tell you the truth every time, whether you like it or not. And if you're doing something wrong, we're going to tell you whether you like it or not. And we're going to hug you and love you and lift you up and celebrate you and everything. Like you're one of us, you're ours. But we're raw and we're authentic, and once in a while we cuss. So if that resonates with people, but our number one focus is results.
Yes.
So, but other people might be like, I don't like that they're whatever women are, they say, they throw out an F-bomb once in a while. Well, cool. Go get some education somewhere
and ask them this. If I'm not getting results in 3 or 4 months, like Lupe, how will you know, and what will you do?
That's a good point.
That's the differentiation right there. How will you know, and what will you do? Because if they don't have a way to keep track of their students' momentum and progress, if they're not scoring your ass red, yellow, green in terms of progress, and if you're off track, we have a monthly meeting. We know when every student is off track, and they're going to get a nudge from their chief experience officer, a nudge from their coach. And God, if they get to red, they're going to hear from me. Like, what is going on? Like, why aren't you doing this? So I would ask that question. What is it that you have in place that helps me if I get off track? Like, how will you know, and what can I expect? That's a clear delineation for me.
And the support factor. Yeah. What kind of support is in there? When we developed the academy, it wasn't just, let's create something. What we needed to create, what we felt we needed to create, is what was missing. What was missing for us, what was missing for all the students I could see that were out there, which was a community of other people doing it, that you have like, it's such a lonely business. It's such a lonely business. So one, community, and two, when you have a deal, or you have a question, or you have a closing that's literally falling apart at the 11th hour, who do you go to?
Right.
Like, all of our students have a one-on-one coach. Originally, we were the one-on-one coaches. Now we have some of our colleagues who we've known for 15 plus years who do real estate at the level we do. We have them doing coaching, for us, so that we can expand the academy. But like, what is the support level? Like, what happens when you're in a deal and you have a question? That I think that's a big one, because that was the biggest thing that we were like, nobody does this, and we have to create a situation where people get the level of help they need. Otherwise, they're not going to get results. And that's our number one goal. Yeah. So, it's expensive for us to do that. Our coaches are, they're the best. They're the best in the country. That doesn't come cheap. So,
but there's no way we're going to let you go beyond a few months without intervening and saying something. We're not going to let you go a whole year and not get anything.
That's not right.
Yeah, it's just not right.
I love that. Well said. All right. The second A in badass is aspiration. I'm a big goal setter. So what is a goal you are currently working on?
Woo! This is the one that I'm obsessed with it. I'm obsessed with it. So
let's hear it, Jen.
I want 300. I am looking for 100 teams of 3: acquisition manager, capital raiser, asset manager. So 100 teams with the bandwidth, they'll be able to do 2 deals a year. That's 200 deals a year. At 200 deals a year, let's just say we're averaging 100 units per property. That's 20,000 units a year. Averaging $150 of cash flow per door is $3 million a month. That is my big goal. It's my big ass goal. It's my bag. And that's what I broke an arrow for in May.
Big, hairy, audacious goal.
There you go. Yeah.
Your BHAG.
I want 300. Yeah. And I'm interviewing for all roles right now.
I love that. Wow. All right. So the next letter is S for systems. What systems do you have in place to help you achieve success?
What I wrote was LOL, chaos is our system.
So
it's really about planning.
Like a monkey fucking a football. Just kidding. Just kidding.
So it's funny because, people want to know. I think people always think that when you're in front of people and you're successful, that you always have all your shit together. And it's just so not the case. But the reality is we do have a lot going on. And so one of the things that we do every week, well, first of all, we break our year into, I actually learned this from Jen, but
it's a 90-day year.
Yeah, we do
plan by quarter.
Yeah, exactly. So we plan quarter by quarter what we're going to accomplish so that we can we're just focusing on this quarter right now. Our goals are much bigger, but those things come later. But every Sunday we sit down and go, okay, what does our week look like ahead? And what do we need to accomplish? What are the key things that need to happen? So that we can align ourselves and our focus and our attention goes there, which makes it far more likely to happen. And then every day we plan our next day. Like, what are the top 3 things? There's always going to be 175 things that need to get done, but there's 3 things that if we for sure got those done, that's going to move the Mercury forward. So it really, I think for us, it just, our biggest system that helps us is the 90-day year.
And the time blocking.
And time blocking.
Time blocking. Like we do things in 90-minute increments so that you stay in your zone of genius and that task and everything related to that task. And it's just more efficient. I'm a black belt in Six Sigma from my corporate America days. The only way I still apply that is to this. Other than that, I don't. But like the 90-minute time blocking and really figuring out like those 3 big things you need to do, that's probably in 60 to 90-minute chunks somewhere that week. Right. And then time blocking it so that you just stay efficient. You're in that zone. Your brain is working that way. And if it's beyond 90 minutes, you're probably going to lose focus because, you go into a trance every 90 minutes anyways to reset stuff. But we do that. So we map out what we want to do for the whole year. Then we backwards plan, well, what does it look like in 90-day increments from each quarter to each quarter? And then in that quarter, what do we need to do this month, that month, and the next? And then within those months, what do we do each week? Like we have a science to this, where we plan that all down and then we go for it. But things happen. Right. Things happen. So, let's just say it's quarter 1 and it's the end of February. And we're like, holy crap, we're actually going to need to shift some stuff to quarter 2. Like we need to sit down and think about that and map it out. So don't be so hard pressed to map out the entire year, like all the way down. That'll drive you crazy, but do it in 90-day increments. Because at the end of 90 days, what happens is you have your 3 goals, you're moving the Mercury on it and you're getting there and you will take massive action. You know what you want, you're going to take massive action. And then you got to actually pay attention to what you're getting. Because if you're not getting what is going to move the Mercury for you and get you to that goal, then you have to adjust. You have to adjust what actions you're taking. And the best way to do that is in 90-day increments, because if you try to do that across the year, you're going to come up short and you're going to be frustrated that I didn't hit that annual goal. But the quarterly approach is just more strategic and methodical. And then, of course, we have systems in place in terms of meetings with property managers that we need to keep on top of, teams that we need to keep on top of. We have all these systems in place for managing teams. And then we have KPIs that we monitor, and we know we do everything. It's very kindergarten. It's either red, yellow, or green. It's either on track, like it's at risk, or it's off track. And we just keep it basic, because if you keep it simple and you know what you're trying to go for, and then you know how to adjust and get it back into the green. So just trying to keep it really simple.
Huge.
That's how we do it. Yeah.
And I too am a big believer in chunking down my goals, and we do the annual goals. And actually we had to, at probably the middle of the second quarter, shift our goals. And so people who only do those annual goals, you are, maybe setting yourself up for some failure, because things change. The market changes. You have to really be ready to pivot. So I love that. And I love that you all have Sunday meetings as well, because my husband and I, that's been a huge part of our habits, is having Sunday 5 p.m. we have our meetings, and it's literally we sit across from each other with our laptop and we have a spreadsheet we go through, and that's kind of how we track our KPIs and all that stuff. And then we just do a new tab for that date, and then we go through and we have our goals broken down into quarterly and monthly at this point. So, and then what are we going to do this week? So I think that is huge system to have to help you achieve success. So I'm glad you all do that as well. So that brings us to the last part here. It's been so fun hanging with you ladies, but the final S in badass is for success. What does success mean to you?
God, that's so hard as an overachiever. Success to me, wow, that's rough. And it's coming up for me in a way that, I want it to be that I'm happy, I'm joyous, and I'm doing all the things. But honestly, like, if I'm going to be fully transparent, success to me is I've hit my goals. I've done what I said I'm going to do, and I'm constantly in forward motion. And, I'm kind of a hippie, and I like to be like, oh yeah, all the woo woo. And that joy is the ultimate goal for me. But I'm just going to full on be transparent. Like, if I'm hitting my goals, I'm impacting other people and helping them go forward. And that, by the way, is one of my biggest goals. I'm giving back to the world and the community and uplifting other people. To me, that's success. If I'm just sitting and chilling on Netflix and I'm kind of dead and in that the Iago trance, I don't feel alive. So for me, I want to be giving back and moving forward. Constant forward movement is success to me, and hitting my goals.
Well, Stacy and Jen, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on the show today. I could talk for another hour. This has been super fun. I'm like, we do like 35, 40 minutes, and I could just keep going. So you all have I just want to wrap this up here. You have the Warriors of Wealth Conference. It is going to be November 3rd through 5th in Orlando, Florida. So you all check that out. It's wowcon.com. But how do they find out about your remote multifamily investing academy? How do they become students?
So I think probably the best way, if someone is like, let me just get to know you guys better. We started a Facebook group, I don't know what, 3.5 years ago, almost going on 4. And that's really where there's 28,000 people in it. And that's really where we nurture people, and it's not like everybody's not going to come into the academy, but we do free trainings every Friday, or we'll do an interview with, an attorney or an insurance agent or someone that would be beneficial to our community. So I think that's the best way to come into our Facebook group and get to know us, come to some of the trainings, ask questions. We're very active in there. And
it's the Facebook group is called Apartment Investing with Jen and Stacy. Super simple to find, and go ahead and join us there. And we have all kinds of good fun in there, like all kinds of trainings for you.
Yeah.
I have taken a peek inside there. It is a great group. How many people you have in there? Would you say?
Like 28,000.
It was 28,000. And then we found out there were a lot of people with unavailable profiles that were stalking people. So we got rid of them.
So it's 27,000 and change, but a lot.
Well, this has been fantastic. I've learned a lot. I really appreciate you taking your time out to be on the Real Estate Investor Growth Network podcast. So ladies, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having us. This was really fun.
Yeah. This was fun. And that is all. Thank you for listening. And we will catch you on the next episode. Now go out there and share your badassery. And don't forget, make it a great day. Take care. Bye-bye. Whoop, whoop.
Thank you for listening to RAIN, the Real Estate Investor Growth Network. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. If you need more badassery, you can follow Jen Josie by visiting therealjenjosie.com or become a member of RAIN by registering on rainmastermind.com.